Welcome to a new series of interviews with global leaders and thought leaders in the areas of defining new strategies for the world by citiesabc.com. I'm Dinis Guarda, and I'm here today to interview someone I deeply admire and that is working in something very important in terms of social impact and gender inclusion. Christine Liu, that is joining us from Shanghai. And we will be talking about our organization, sHero, and I'll do a small introduction in a while. But so citiesabc.com was created in a way to join, unite citizens and cities all over the world and people that are changing and creating new solutions and as well creating new movements to better unite and reinvent our society and all different things. So the platform is quite recent, but we are already reaching millions of people worldwide, and we're growing to get right now more and more people, and as well especially profiling and highlighting profiles of personalities that are changing our world and creating better narratives, better stories, and as well creating value for all of us. We need that more than ever with all the challenges we're facing. So I will welcome Christine Liu to our call. It's a huge pleasure and honor to have you here. And I think, well, we'll start by asking you about your profile as well. You are in Shanghai, China, which is a wonderful city, and as well understanding how do you come in terms of your profile. So welcome on board.
Thank you. Thank you, Denise, for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to the interview. Myself, I was based in Shanghai. I'm based in Shanghai now. I was originally from northern part of China. So my university, I studied in the university in northern part of China in finance economics. That was a long time ago. In 1991, I graduated, and then I was so lucky. I was one of the most lucky person. I mean, then I joined Pfizer as my first job, where in Dalian, the joint venture was formed. That was early 90s. Then we moved to Shanghai in 1994. Then over the years, 20 years, I spent 20 years with the different multinational organizations for pharmaceuticals, including Pfizer, I mentioned, and also GSK, and other organizations like Honeywell, and also one of the largest luxury group like Richmond. And over the 20 years with the different organizations, so I was in procurement and marketing, sales and administration. And the last 10 years, I was in human resources. After 20 years in 2011, I left the corporate world and started sHero as an organization empowering women.
Well, that's a fantastic profile, and coming from some of the leading companies in the world, and then starting an organization to empower women. And especially, I think it's particularly interesting to look at the last 20 years. China passed from representing around 20% of the global GDP to become the leading economy in the world, and it's becoming much bigger. So in the last 20 years, and I would like to start with this because I think it's interesting to see, especially someone like you that start working with big global organizations, but 20 years ago. So that means the world was completely different. So I would like to start.
30 years ago.
Oh, it's still very young. But it's quite impressive because in 30 years, that's a massive change all over the world. Actually, it's not just in China, but China in particular. So I would like to start by that. So because I'm sure even from a gender, from a leadership perspective, things have been changing probably from night to day. And as well, China 30 years ago was much more close as an economy and as a society, and now is much bigger, and as well it has brands that became the leading brands in the world. So I would like to start by that, because starting with global companies at the time were probably quite different from being a Chinese woman and leader and working in procurement and marketing in different areas. And then we see China grow to become this, well, China was always a powerhouse in the history of mankind, but to become a leading economical and technological power. So could you talk about that before we go to sHero and other backgrounds? Because I'm particularly interested on that as well.
I mean, the 20 years with the multinational companies, right? Since
yes.
early 90s. I think that was the 20 years, as a witness of the changes, right? And also there was the 20 years, I was so grateful to be given the opportunity. And can you imagine when I started with Pfizer, I could not hardly speak English and using English as my business languages. And one day I decided, I said, no, I need to discipline myself. I'm determined to use the language at work. So since then, all the time I write in English and talk in English and speak in English. So that was a time, and like you were just given an opportunity when you didn't have a chance to work for state-owned companies, but we don't have that many private companies. So we call it the foreign companies. I was so grateful. And in the same time, it's really changed your life. I mean, in terms of the learning, the trainings you gained, and also the experiences. I said it's really about you learn by doing. So you never been trained by being professional in HR. For example, when I started HR since GSK, for example, that was a 2000 time, and when the two giants of the pharmaceutical companies and merger, and then I was hired as leading the China operations and the integration team, and that was the time very few companies and started a shared services model. So that was also an example of you learn by doing, and you became the leader, leading the team for whole countries. And then I moved to Honeywell, for example. That was the time to 2004, and when very few local talents and became the leader leading the whole. Although I was just in charge of the shared services HR, I was the HR for the shared services for the whole Asia Pacific, and covering 15 countries. And that was a time you have colleagues from different countries reporting to you. So I was really given the opportunity to learn from them, and also culturally, not just about the language, not just about the businesses. So you learn about a lot of things, in terms of trust, in terms of confidence, in terms of how you work with a global team and the regional team. When I was hired and worked for Richmond, that was 2008, and was a financial crisis time. I joined the company when 18 brands and they entered the country, the market of China, and they opened, shops and luxury, boutiques. Sometimes you can imagine in the months we went to Hangzhou, and then we tried to get together 500, young people and the talents from different, backgrounds. We tried to select 50 and then to work for different stores. I mean, the same time open to the market. So that was the experiences I always, when I look back, think about. It's about learning. It's about really seeing the world. It's also about you're really cherishing the time and to make a contributions, and also you witness the dramatic changes from joint ventures, from holding company for sales marketings, and then for when some of the companies and more companies, like in early 2000, moving to Shanghai or to China as the regional offices. And that was amazing. I thought that was the best time. If I look back today, and for the 20 years, that was the best time. I was totally shaped to a different person, to be a leader, and to, as we said, we don't have any backgrounds, like you have a wealthy family, you have the connections, but you just have this opportunity, but they don't judge you by your backgrounds, by your family backgrounds or the money you have. As I said, we have a plan for a book for becoming sHero. We can talk about sHero later on, but for this book, 3 parts. One part is about the 20 years when I was with the multinational companies. And also another one is it's really about the 10 years, past 10 years for sHero. I call it the journey. It's about personal growth and finding, and also celebrating empowering women. Actually, 2020 is very special. I think everybody is kind of in the moment when the past and the present and future are coexisting at the same time. So it's really, we're starting from zero kind of, and for the future.
That's amazing and very inspiring. So one question on that. So in the last 20 years, so you start by global companies and some of the leading technology, and as well in this case pharmaceutical companies, and you are working procurement and HR, which are very important things because it deals with all the culture of the company, and it deals with adaptation, change management, digital transformation, and all these different areas. How do you see these last 20 years in terms of the progress that you saw, especially in China, but as well in Asia, in terms of the present system of the work and leadership?
Yeah, I think generally speaking, I think the leadership, especially you're talking about, the local talents and emerging as the leaders for the team. Three things. In the very beginning, like in the early 90s, as I said, when you look at the local talents, you just look at something like, do they speak English? And really, people speak good English and can really work for multinational companies. And then I guess since like late 1990s, as I mentioned, like 2000, and then you found the localization. I still remember when I joined GSK, we talk a lot about localization. We talk about how we develop the local talents and to be the future leaders. At that time, as those who are we call it the pioneers, who are those in early times were hired by and work for multinational companies, become the talents pool for other companies who come into China. So they're really looking for, yes, someone not only about the languages, but also someone also accumulated over like 10 years experiences working for different organizations, and to roll out the global processes and to really build the culture, also including the younger talents. And then when you look at, when I left the corporate world, like it's like a 2011 or 10 time. Wow, amazingly, you have more talents like myself and become, in charge of the region geographically and in charge of different functions. And you also see some of the leaders becoming the business leaders. They really, in charge of expanding the businesses and really, make a lot of differences. For the past 10 years, especially when I was working focused on sHero, I found the regional leaders and also the country leaders. I mean, they are more global, become very global perspective. In particular, I think one thing is we have more Chinese companies emerging as global players. So when you look at the talents war, it can give you some ideas of when they so-called competing for talents, that really as a good demonstration of the evolution of the talents, become leaders, especially for the past 10 years. We're looking at the e-commerce, for example. We're looking at the local actions, how you can really, not just being fast, but also responsive to the changes. As I said, to leaders, just the speed of the workplaces is really kind of behind, to some extent, the change of the working force. And for the younger generations, more younger generations are overseas study, and returnees coming back, or they bring into the country very much the global perspectives, and in terms of lifestyle as well. So when you just ask about the leadership, I think the evolution is kind of transformational. If you talk about myself as a person, it's changed my life. I just kind of living a different lives. And it's very fast. We also pay price. but in the same time, we really were given the best opportunities, I think, in the world and to do things. And especially the entrepreneurship, innovation, when I talk about creativity for the past 10 years, I'm very much demonstrated by the leadership or the younger generation of leadership.
Yeah, that's very inspiring as well. I'm sure that it was a massive change from in the last 20 years that you saw as well happening within the country and within the organizations you've been working. So what made you shift from a comfortable position in these big organizations, and as well it seems like you had a fantastic experience there, to create sHero? And how did you come up with the idea? How did it create to some consubstantiate and as well build an organization for women leaders, which is particularly important given all the issues we have still in terms of gender balance? For instance, most of the studies worldwide state that women are much less paid than men. There's a lot of issues facing workforce specific imbalances and all different things. And I know that China as well has still a lot of imbalance on that. So how did you create sHero, and what is the goals, and how did you come back with all these ideas, and as well how have you been growing?
Yeah, talking about sHero, I would love to share with you before we go into details, and I'm happy to share. I think as an organization, empowering women, and the mission is very humbly, to empower women through employment, education, and also engagement. As I said, it's about women's role in the marketplace, as a consumers, in the workplace, as a talents, and also in the society, the role in the society as individuals. And we became over the 10 years the specialist in 3 areas. One is empower women agenda, and another one is the D&I, diversity inclusion. And actually diversity inclusion is more about not just a gender, it's also about generation geography. And I said 2020 also offered me another opportunity to define it to 5G, which is giving back and also growth. And when we started sHero, there was also, as I said, a journey of as a person. I think I would say, as a person, like you work for 20 years and with those great organizations, but in the same time, you also had reflections to say, wow, is it something I have been missed? For example, you've been working nonstop and traveling, 24 hours kind of on call and traveling, globally on the plane and meetings. You also have a family, you have a children, and you have to take care of your health, and you have to take care of other things. So when I started to wonder, wow, did I miss anything? I mean, how about other women, especially women leaders? When I was with Honeywell, we really, highly think of and also highly promoting women leaders, where the organization, most of the employees or leadership are still men, but nothing wrong, because it's really about science, really by technology company, R&D based. And when I started to think about where, could be possible, we have opportunity for other women to join, after work, we share, as a role models, we are looking for role models. When I have some challenges, I mean, even over the years today, I found the similar challenges is still, challenge other people and very much alike. So you're looking for answers. You're looking for answers for work-life balances. You're looking for answers. I mean, what's the future, the career path? But you're also looking for something, as a meaning, as I said. We're not just looking for the financial growth, but we're also looking for the personal growth. I think that's the one thing we also need to catch up. And I think I had a somewhat, burnout at that time, which I didn't know that was a burnout. But you really feel there was a calling, nagging voices, calling for seeing another side of the world. I mean, also getting to another, more about yourself as a person. So I just, when I had a career break after Honeywell, before Richmond, I started called a dialogue, and the dialogue today become the global forum, and for the past 10 years, and the dialogue became something as a platform to connecting women, informing women, and also inspiring women. So at the very beginning, when I look back, and the tagline was "Dare to be yourself." And when I share with others and people laugh at me, they thought, I was crazy. It's kind of you give up a very, very great opportunities. So many people are desperate for great companies and great opportunities and great pay and great people, leaders. I mean, that's something I also very grateful to be working with those great leaders from different countries, from different nationalities. So the very beginning of sHero is like every time on a monthly basis. That was 2007 and 8 time. That was the time we gather everybody each time. We don't have WeChat, which is a email, everybody, and every time we find a place. I was lucky again, every time we were sponsored by like companies like a GE, company like Starbucks. But I was also a time, most of the senior leaders at time are still expats. Can you imagine today? And it's changing a lot. We have more local talents becoming, in charge of the country, in charge of the region. And every time we talk about, various topics about, the career path, about the challenges. But most of the time, I found women are so much similar, which I thought I'm the only one struggling, maybe. I'm the only one become vulnerable. Although everybody say me, I was so lucky, everything was so good. Yeah, nothing wrong, nothing not good. And then every time we invited a speaker and who as a role model and who shared her, to be brave, and her stories, work and life. And then it became a kind of community. And the community later on become a community today. We have like 5 generations. And the community today, consisting more, not just of women from the, corporate world, but also women, especially for the past, 5 years, are emerging as entrepreneurs, innovators, creators, especially young people. And they are designers, they are artists, and they became on their own. They became doing many things we could not think of before, and unconventionally. So that was a dialogue, I call it, among women, and so encouraging not just a single kind of empowerment, but it's more about, I call it, collectively. Be responsible collectively. We are, we have the collaborations to be supporting each other. So that was the very beginning of sHero, and that was also the thing, the spirit I said as a sHero is the first step is women, to encouraging women, supporting women, and that's something very, very powerful. I said when women get together, and can be destructive, can be also constructive. So the community I build, I just encourage women to become more constructive, supporting each other when you are in need, supporting each other. And over the years, and not just after work, but also especially when I started DNI, in 2016, and then we started to talk about how we support women in the workplaces with each other.
So you mentioned a lot about the importance of humility and as well to learn with the experience. And I think that's a very important thing when it comes to leadership. So as someone that has been in very big international leadership roles, and as well right now creating an organization for women leaders, can you tell us how do you define leadership from yourself, from your experience, and as well how sHero positions its kind of vision in terms of how apply leadership in our time, especially when there's so much geopolitical issues, a lot of changes in terms of even the society that we are, technology, and of course right now with the pandemic and all the things that coming out of that.
Yeah, I've been invited and speaking about women leadership for these 10 years. I was seen as a specialist in women leadership. And then I also learned a lot about women leadership. But as I always talk about women leadership, I said there is no such thing. We have to differentiate women and men, but it's more about how we are trying to address the challenges for women in leadership. And in the same time, as a sHero, we always, when we build the community, but not women from the society, but also from most of them from the workplaces, and they are leaders, and they are different functions leaders, and they also from different backgrounds. So I said, first of all, we call it the core values, not just for the sHero as an organization, but also we talk about that all the time as something like integrity. That's something unconditional. And then another thing that's very, very important is since the very beginning, I said we call it the power of passion and perseverance. Without that, whether you work for other companies and you work as entrepreneurs, in the environment situation like in China, not only the changes, the pace, but also, you have to learn. You have to take actions. You have to make decisions. You have to make right decisions. The talents will never be ending. It's getting fierce and fierce. And also, you cannot just say, yeah, you learn from others, but you also have to innovate something by yourself. So as I said, the core spirit is also about, as I mentioned, entrepreneurship and innovation and creativity. And in the early days, when I, look at this in training or read the company's values, handbook, and that was something in theory. But when you start at sHero, and it's really a great opportunity, you have to live in it. You cannot have the resources. That's why more, Chinese companies today, and as I said, one of the key reasons, and they become more successful, is about entrepreneurship, the spirit of innovation and creativity. And another thing is this is really 2020, this year, the crisis brought everybody and to pay a lot of attention to talk about resilience, to talk about humanity, and to talk about empathy. I think those three, qualities or your traits or values, competencies, and make you a great leader. And we cannot, as I said, we've also paid a high price to, do we really take good care of ourselves? Do we really take care of the family at the same time when we're striving for the financial growth, the size? Bigger and bigger. But now I think it's a moment for everybody to pause. You won't say it's a great thing, but it's how you really get a reflection from what happened today to everybody, also to China too. So how we can be, a great leader. What's the differentiation? If you ask me, is we're not just doing something for the financial prosperities, but also for the growth of the purpose, with a purpose. Without the purpose, you cannot imagine the future. What a legacy you leave to the children. And the other day we talk about the younger generations. For this year, even they don't have the opportunities to find other jobs, or they don't really have opportunity to continue their study or was interrupted. I'm just wondering, we actually had a great time when most of the people complaining about, well, this is not a great opportunity, the pay is not great, and I was not given the promotion, and so on and so forth. And then compared to what happened today to everybody and the crisis we are facing, I think we need great leaders. But I have to mention about one thing is we need more women leaders. This is not about whatever you call it, feminism. I never want to talk about the so-called feminism, but nothing wrong. But we always talk about women leadership. I'm talking about choices. I'm talking about, be accountable for. as I said, if for the past 10 years is about of women, we started from something, of women, and then we've been doing something for women. But now I said the other day with the 27 coach mentor sponsors, so we try to get together as a partners to offering some learning opportunities to the younger generations. I said, it's a time to buy women. Yeah. Like a family. We need a balance. We need a balance for leadership. And then we also need to take the lead, whoever is qualified, and to make the right decisions, not only for the family, but also for the company or for the country.
And I think leadership is this kind of sense of community is critical. So one of the things that, at least for me, it's particularly important as someone that is very global and as well that have a very global team and global family, is how we create these values within people. Because at the moment we have a very sensitive geopolitics and as well a lot of fear. Because if you see the news, you get actually anyone gets in panic because there's the panic of health, there's the panic of financial meltdown, there's the panic even of people in the street because okay, this person might have the virus, might pass it to us, and this is creating a lot of unbalance and a lot of cultural issues. Of course, in the positive angle, of course, there's a lot of wonderful things happening as well, and projects like yours are precisely creating leadership on that. So from the initiatives that you're doing with sHero, what would be the things that that you highlight and as well that you bring to the table? Because I think it's particularly important, and I am a huge fan of women leadership, because normally when I work with teams that are more balanced in terms of gender, there's always a bigger balance in terms of the work balance, and probably you see things in a slightly different way, because when it's just men, you try to be more testosterone and things like that. And I think when we have a balance between gender, you actually create much more balance. So how do you see this kind of nitty-gritty details that you can actually bring when it comes to leadership, when it comes to values that you can take for day to day, and as well the work of sHero on that angle?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of challenges, there are different, reports and different study on the challenges, particularly regarding women leaders are faced with. In China, am I with you on the question?
Yes.
Yeah, the question is yes. Take China, for example, although when I, running sHero is, especially in terms of the forum we created, we've been to different countries and not just a focus on China, but it's really more like a global, as exposures and also network, but with the focus on China, because this is also the 30 years in the past, we have witness of the women's leadership involvement. But in terms of challenges, some of the challenges are very similar. For example, you take an example for the entrepreneurs, they also have the challenges of balancing work and life. And they have, maybe when you become an entrepreneur, you have more time for work, maybe less time for the family. And, similar to, executive women in the corporate world. And this is one thing. And we also talk about the other challenges for, when women are given opportunities, are there any barriers preventing them from and to really move on with their opportunities? Some of the challenges are family. They have the consideration of, do I want to take a job and then leaving the family behind? And this is one of the challenges. And and the other challenges, yes, we're still talking about glass ceilings. We're still talking about what can be the measures we try to move the needle faster in terms of talents pipeline. I was involved in the talents pipeline for the female talents and diverse talents on various occasions. Also this year, we're also creating a female and diverse talents pipeline project for 2020 to addressing the gaps when women really get ready to become a senior leaderships, whether they are given the opportunities I said. We're not just talking about the diversity or the gender, the quota, but we're also talking about inclusiveness do we have a woman as leaders at the 3 years ready box, or do we have the culture there? I also have examples of women, they are the only one person on the board. We also have a woman, they have the challenges about, it's also, as I said, it's about the environment. Women today is in China also, they are the winners of education. We have more women become the PhD holders and, doctor degrees and master degrees. But what's the question sometimes I also asking myself? We still have a few women compared to the past. Yeah, we have more, but we still have a few women in the senior leadership. Last year, we launched, pioneered to launch awards to recognize those companies. We call it the best companies in China, although some of them are global companies too, foreign companies and local companies. How many women are at the C-level? How many women are the board member? Yes, amazingly, we have seen the increase, but in the same time, we still have the reality is we need more women. So in terms of the challenges, we also see some progresses as well. To give you an example, like 5 years ago or longer, when I started sHero, when I interviewed women leaders and talking about, what can be, helping them to become the leaders, especially from the family. And they talk about the families and they talk about, sometimes it's not easy. You become the breadwinner. It's not, it's not the case. Some women talk about openly. Sometimes it become, I'm not seeing obstacles. Sometimes it becomes something, it's not really encouraging. But for the past 2 years, especially if I noticed, we have more women and senior leaders, they talk about they are the breadwinners and they have the husband to support them at home. We have one woman leader, and she said for the past few years, and her husband chose to stay home and to taking care of the children. Although the couple, they've been abroad, studied abroad, and they came back to China. So that was also really, case by case, different situation. But in the same time, we also seen some challenges today for the middle level, I call it middle level women, young professionals. They have younger children. And now when the second child policy become effective, and employers, both employers and also women professionals encounter the new challenges. For example, they go back to home and then they go back to work. So what's the gap? Because everything is changing so fast. We also have other challenges when more companies, are local and then they are the startups, and they won't talk about openly. But I still have some feedback from women when they talk to me, when they talk to us. They said, "Wow, if you join internet companies, 40 years old could become something as a barrier." And then we started something last year. I call it, we also, we became a 50 plus, sHero 50 plus club. Not many people, but it's more, we started as talking about the challenges, talking about the aging population, talking about what there might be implications to women. And to my surprise, also, to my to some extent disappointment, some of the women they are great leaders and they are hit. They were reminded of, wow, it's the time to go. I mean, it's not from a legal perspective. It's more about they have this feeling, I mean, there is no opportunities. So that's one of the reasons I was motivated to relaunch the Coach Mentor Sponsor program. And as I said, it's about women. So it's more about gathering those women who are the leaders, and they also want to contribute to the society. They also want to find a way and to be an entrepreneur.
So this touches, and I think this coaching is critical. Actually, I see from my own experience and as well, the coaching within companies, outside companies, and you mentioned a very important point as well, that is the age gap and all the different things. But one of the things that happens right now as well is that I think we have two kind of cultures in terms of business. There's the like big global corporations that have like a global culture and the multinational approach, which is part of your experience and mine as well. And then there's companies that have just one nationality culture. And we see more and more a clash between these, because especially as China becomes a powerhouse, but as well, for instance, what is happening right now in the US, that has been the world leading business economical powerhouse. But they are right now, of course, losing that angle. But as well, there's a kind of almost a dismantling of this global first view on business. So how would you see that? Because being in China, which is as well a very close economy in a lot of ways, but as well being working in China with international companies gives you a privileged angle to look at China, international, and as well everything that is happening right now. So you think, and as well the age gap, I think you touched that, and it's something that people don't speak, but it's particularly important. Because, for instance, I think to create a startup or a company, the age is not relevant at all. But there's a culture that you need to have very young people because they have more energy. But to be honest, for instance, in my case, and I always speak this with our team, I prefer actually people that have experience with family, that have experience with challenges, because that means they will be much more responsible and they will be much more dynamic as well. But of course, the problem bears, and I think that is my experience, I would like to hear your input on that, is that depends a lot if the person has an experience like yours that is working on international environment, or if the person always work for a company that is very national center. Of course, it's not the fault of the person, but there's the lack of experience on that. So you've been seeing that in particular as China becomes bigger and bigger, and your companies are right now leading the world in a lot of different areas, but as well as we need more and more global culture, because we need a world first approach towards business. I don't think we can create global business or actually even do business if we don't think global. We will be actually having more and more restrictions. One thing is supply chain or control of quality, but we need global experience. Otherwise, you cannot grow and you cannot create business. I would like to hear your opinion on this.
I really, appreciate you have this question, and that is a very, very good opportunity to talk about that. I thought about that for a while, especially for the past 10 years. When we've been, exchanging ideas and experiences, and also just took the past 10 years as an example, as a time when local companies, and who are also could be global players, right? And also international companies, when they try to exchange in a diplomatic way or competing with the talents. On the one hand, you found when I was with when I was in the corporate world and with the foreign companies and basically the multinational companies, it's really a time when competing talents, they are more attractive. And then I found for the past 10 years, local companies become more attractive. I think one of the things, obviously, is about the growth. It's about the growth again. But on the other hand, I also had the feedback about the talents and going or joining the local companies, because most of them like 10 years old, and they are startups, and the priorities are more about growth again. And they found there is a lack of something. They call it something soft, right? And then whether you have different experiences, or whether they have been feeling differently. When I try to look at this, I see this is we need a balance. That's why when I built sHero as a community, and then since 2014, I had another dream. The dream is I want to make it as a social enterprise, as an organization. So the organization is not just, as I said, of women, yes, and then for women, but it's more about women. So this is something we need to balance. Like 2016, I produced one forum I call the China Women and Diversity Forum. And the forum is not just talk about the quota. It's not just only talk about the ratio, but it's more talk about the talents. It's more talk about how, as organizations, I mean, today, it doesn't matter you're coming from local companies, you're coming from, national, global companies or multinational companies or Chinese companies. As I said at that conference, I said it's a time to call for stronger leadership and new voice of innovation, which means we need people with a global perspectives. You have seen the world. You have seen what is going on in the world. But in the same time, yes, why people coming to China? Why? And why people still complaining about we have challenges? Yes, we do have a challenge. We're still developing countries. But when you look at the positive side of it, I want people understand, become the opportunity to really shape the great leaders. So again, my dream is from that time, I said, I want to unite everybody. Come to my forum and talk about innovations. Talk about working together and talk about talents care. It's not just competing for the talents, but you need the talents even for the local companies. I heard some local companies, when they become global, when they really expand into other countries, what become the barriers? I mean, not just the languages, I mean, the understanding of the culture. The understanding of the culture. So when so many companies coming to China, not only they made a success, it became successful in terms of, a great market, I've been to many countries in this region as well, like India and other Southeast Asia countries. I found, wow, these global companies really change the lives of the employees, change the lives of the local, people. But in the same time, I mean, one thing cannot be replaced by whether we talk about the softer skills, whether we talk about the values like empathy or humanity or resilience, so on and so forth. It's about the connection. I think it's really, really about people, coming to our country and then we're going to other countries. Can we just, become more humble and to really to learn from each other? Are you passionate about and fascinated about the culture? What they eat and what they dress, wear. I mean, this is something more than that. How they think, respect for their customers and respect for the cultures, but in the same time, what made us the difference and some other companies are more successful is, I mean, they are professional, they have the global vision, but they also can make decisions and to really accuse customers to the local practice and the local cultures. That's what I see. That's why my dream is to make a sHero as a social enterprises and to have a balance of the culture. And some of the women join the community, whether we have a team for like a coach mentor sponsors team, they're experts. And they said, first of all, they want to join, they want to work with us because they want to have a sense of a belonging, and that's inclusion. Right? We cannot just talk about you're from there, and then you speak English with an accent, and then I mean this whether you call it unconscious bias, but it's become the barriers, it's a true barriers from each other to to really seize the opportunity and to be more successful. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see some of the Chinese companies when they become global, they have a whole building financially, but in the same time, are you really embracing talents, and with the respect? But yes, it's getting much better. But we see some of the people, for example, I want to give you an example like a Sichi and the CEO Jean, and she's also, one of the great women leaders I want to share with you. When she became the CEO, you look at not just a quota of the women leadership team, more women, but also she started to build a culture, embracing everybody. I mean, offering different flexible, policies and to making sure everybody is included. But I think Alibaba is another good example, although they have a very different culture. More and more differences between, I say, mediocre leaders or mediocre companies and also great leaders or great companies, never limited to I'm a local or I'm a foreign. I mean, I said last year, 2019, I produced another forum is really based on future work, for the purpose of future work. I said, we are global. I mean, we are global now. If you're talking about China is global, I mean, it's more about, take the responsibilities. So it's not just about, okay, we are on our own. And I think China today, with more younger generations, become more global perspective. And that was the good news in the future. So they really have more ideas how to really build the country and more global in the same time, more culturally, also locally action.
Completely. So we've been almost in 1 hour interview. So in terms of wrapping up, and I think there's a lot of things here from the angle of coaching, humility. Our leadership is as well a process of coaching and learning, which I think everyone needs that. And I think I include myself firstly, but I think everyone that is listening to us worldwide. So for people that want to know more about sHero, about yourself, where can people find it? How people can actually sign up and engage? Because I think what I feel from my experience is we need more and more cases like yours, and we need inspiration. And of course, our platform, citiesabc.com, is as well to promote and to collaborate to organizations like yours. So if you could give us a bit more of an incentive in terms of how people worldwide, and of course we'll put this in the interview, but as well listening from you, can join, can listen from you, understand and learn, because I think we need that. We need desperately that. Yeah.
I mean, thank you for the opportunity. First of all, I really being grateful to have this opportunity to share, and also, if possible, to connect more people and to work on the cause and to drive the real changes. I think one of the way is, as I mentioned to you earlier, I call it the sHero channel. The sHero channel is really starting from the sHero forum. It's more like offline, gathering women leaders and role models. But sHero channel is more about how to leverage social media, and this is something I also need help and support. Let's together, as a woman, for example, this is a platform to tell stories. We have 3 major programs I created and to be starting from. One is the girls, believing empowering women starting from the ages when they still are confident and have the self-esteem. So I really have a very much focus in the future on this channel, and to helping girls to be confident, to with more self-esteem. So this is one of the program. Another one is I call the women leaders with the impact, sHero Women's Chinese women leadership of for the past 20 years or 30 years, to really share their stories and to offering the platform. Everybody has opportunity. You don't have to be celebrity to tell your own stories. So that's why another thing is D&I. And then we have been started by articles, but now we want to be more frequent, more covering, and also inviting more people to become something to linkage and connecting China and with the world. And also, I'm so sure, especially women's stories can really make a lot of contributions for these connections. That's why we have some projects for this year, and due to the crisis, but also could become being resilient, become the opportunities. That's why we plan to build the www.sherochina.com. It was our website, and I wanted also building to become a platform to connect talents of women and diversity talents to those top employers to continue with this kind of employment of the work. And we started learning with a coach mentor sponsoring network and also platform with more women leaders and leaders who join us to support women and support the younger generations of, not the country, but different organizations. So that was something I'm also looking forward to, more partnership and also more people getting involved and contacting us. And I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to share.
So do you want to suggest any groups or social media that people can find? Well, of course, we'll put this on the interview text as well, but I think for people that are listening right now, they can contact you by, I don't know, some Facebook group or
by my
chat or?
Yes, can be on LinkedIn. We can be contacted on LinkedIn. I think so far we are on LinkedIn with a global connection, and that's the only official one. Yeah. I'm so grateful. For my typical day is in the morning I'm on LinkedIn, and then during the day on WeChat. We have a WeChat account. You know, in the evening I'm on Douyin. I think Douyin is very much a platform where becoming popular today in China. It's a kind of a short video platform. Yeah, it's become a more powerful tool. So we have a Douyin, sHero China. We have a WeChat, sHero China. We have the website, sHeroChina.com. I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah, we're sHero China also on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. So definitely we will put the links to LinkedIn in the interview. And I want to thank you for this time and for this inspirational talk. I think we need definitely much more talk about human resources, coaching, and leadership from a positive angle and from an inspirational angle. So Christine Liu, I want to thank you and all the team of sHero. I hope we can actually promote as well through citiesabc.com and our other platforms, and as well making bridges. We need more bridges than ever. I think the wise men should make bridges, and I think as well the Chinese word for crisis as well, it has the angle of opportunities. So I think there's a lot of opportunities now to work on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everybody on call. And I'm glad we have this conversation. Thank you.